Alrighty, bitches. It's finally happening. I've got to finish it. Hopefully, there's not many chapters left. We're at 13, so surely. Anyway, you have to see it because the fan's on. I don't want to be a bit loud. So hopefully, you can hear me. Alrighty, chapter 13, The Answer. Rowan screamed, waiting for the hot breath, the tearing fangs and claws that would mean death, but they did not come. He uncovered his eyes fearfully. The dragon was very near. It was watching him. Its flat, snake-like eyes stared into his, compelling him. "John," called Rowan, in a low voice, without looking away. "Strong John." "I am here," came the answer. "The creature's tail has me pinned to the wall. I cannot move. Rowan, save yourself if you can." The dragon growled. It turned its head towards John's voice, then looked back to Rowan. It swayed its huge body and clawed at the soft place in its neck, where dried blood crusted wounds made over many days. Its eyes were red pools of anger and something else. Rowan saw it, and in amazement recognized it for what it was: dumb animal pain. He slowly got to his feet, never breaking his gaze. "What ails you?" he said quietly, in the voice he used for the bookshelf. The dragon lowered its head and opened its jaws. It moaned deep in its throat. Needle-sharp teeth dripped watery blood on the snow at Rowan's feet. What the fuck, sorry. Hot, stinking breath beat in his face. Rowan shrank back, but again the dragon did not strike. "Rowan," hissed Strong John, "back away slowly and go. You have the map and the compass. You can get home. You have a chance. Take it." Rowan barely heard him. He was looking at the claw marks around the dragon's neck. An idea forming in his mind suddenly became crystal clear. He glanced around the cave. No bones or flesh, just fresh white snow. "You have not been eating," he crooned to the dragon, as if he were talking to Star. "You have not been hunting, yet your jaws drip blood." He met the dragon's eyes. Long ago, in a very different place, and in a pair of very different eyes, he had seen that look before. If he could earn the beast's trust, he made his decision and took a deep breath. "I think I know what is wrong, and I can help you," he said. "I am a friend, a friend." The dragon stared at him, unblinking. "Be still," said Rowan. He moved closer. He looked into the red and dripping mouth, then leaned inside, further and further till he found what he sought. Look in the fiery jaws of fear, and see the answer white and clear. The bone was sharp and white. It was jammed between a tooth and the back of the dragon's throat punch, as a twig had once caught in Star's throat. Rowan had removed that twig. He could remove this bone. He worked gently, knowing the agony the creature was feeling. The dragon growled. One wrong move, and those terrible jaws would snap closed. Little by little, Rowan eased the bone free. At last, with a delicate twist, he pulled it. He backed out of the dragon's mouth and towards Strong John, holding the bone in his hand. "Now," he said softly, "now let us go. You are well. You can hunt. Let us." The dragon's eyes flashed. It rose up on its hind legs. It beat its scaly white wings. At last it was free of the terrible pain that had stilled its roar and quenched its fire for so many days. The pain that had stopped it from hunting, wheeling through the skies above its cloudy kingdom. It was free and hungry. It roared, and the sound was like thunder, beating and echoing around the walls of the lair. Icicles fell from the cave roof, smashing and splintering on the ground, and the ground itself shook. It roared again, and sheets of fire belched from its mouth and nostrils, melting the snow and ice so that steam billowed into the air to mix with flame and choking smoke. Then it turned to John. Hunger burned in its red eyes. It would not yet attack the boy who had healed it with his gentle hands, but the man was a different story. "No," shouted Rowan. He ran to John's side, slipping and sliding on the now icy floor of the lair. He threw himself down by the helpless man and shielded him with his body. Why am I yawning so much? I didn't yawn before this video. Ugh, the influencer life is so hard. The dragon twisted and roared, and John cried out in agony as the movement crushed him even more firmly against the cavern wall. Rowan pulled out his knife and stabbed desperately at the dragon's tail, but the knife blade bent and broke against the shiny white scales. It was useless. The dragon howled with rage and spat a wall of flame that singed Rowan's hair and eyebrows. Again and again the roaring flame came at them. They huddled together. "Rowan," groaned John. "Rowan, it is trying to scare you off. It only wants me now. Get out while you can, for Jilla's sake, if not for your own. Rowan, I promised her. I beg of you, go." But Rowan would not give in. He had to make the dragon move its tail so that John would be free to run. What the fuck? Ugh, my god, I'm sorry. He had to do it before the dragon lost patience and killed them both, but he had no weapons. "What will I do?" he cried out. "I don't know what to do." "Remember well the words you know." What words, Rowan whimpered. "Oh, please." "The map." Strong John's voice was faint beside him. "Rowan." Crouching low, Rowan pulled the map from his belt and unrolled it. "Remember well the words you know." The last blank space was filled. The words swam before his eyes, the words he knew indeed, the words that he had heard for the first time with a thrill of dread, the words that had filled his dreams and haunted his thoughts in the long days since. 7 hearts the journey make, 7 ways the hearts will break. Bravest heart will carry on when sleep is death and hope is gone. Look in the fiery jaws of fear and see the answer white and clear. Then throw away all thoughts of home, for only then your quest is done. All the prophecies had come to pass, except the last and the most terrible, and now it was time. Rowan rolled up the map and drew John's compass from his pocket. He waited his moment. Throw away all thoughts of home. The dragon threw back its head and again roared in anger. Its soft neck, scratched and torn by its own claws in its efforts to dislodge the choking bone and end the pain, gleamed pale and exposed. And with all the strength and desperation of his fear, Rowan hurled the compass at that white, tender target. It struck, like a hard, sharp stone, and the dragon cried and thrashed in pain and fury, tossing its head from side to side, lifting its tail from Strong John's body. Oh my fucking god. Just for a moment, just long enough for Rowan to pull John free, to drag him, sliding over the icy ground, towards the entrance of the lair. Just long enough for him to turn and throw the rolled up mat hard, straight and spinning, to strike the exposed neck again, so that again the dragon roared and for precious seconds turned away its head from them. Throw away all thoughts of home. Then they were running from the lair, to find a place to hide, to burrow like the night animals, away from the dragon's rage. For only then your quest is done. Yes, the quest was done and lost, as they were. Mother, Star, Rowan sobbed. His heart was breaking, yet he still ran. But the snow before the lair had melted in the dragon's fire, and now the flat surface was a sheet of swimming ice. Rowan and John slipped and fell, their hands flailing helplessly, their feet sliding from beneath them as they struggled to rise and run again. The dragon's red eyes burned. It raised itself in anger. Sheets of fire, hot as 100 furnaces, burst from its mouth and nose, scorching their feet, boiling the ice to a hissing mass of water and steam. Rowan and John crawled, beating at the melting ice, twisting their bodies to save themselves. Then, with a screeching crack, the ice split beneath them. The ice that had formed and lain unmelted all the long days of the dragon's pain, but now at last was feeling the heat of its flames and giving away. The cold, sweet water from the melted snow poured through the ice and into the underground channel that was its old escape from the mountain top, and with it fell John and Rowan, gasping and shocked, tossed like corks in the bubbling rush. That was a hard sentence. Rowan drew breath, struggled to regain his feet. They were beneath the earth, beneath the ice. He could no longer see the dragon. He could no longer see the sky. The water was pushing him. He could not resist it. All was darkness and glassy smooth rock, freezing water and rushing sound. Rowan called for John and grabbed for his hand. All at once he knew what had happened. They had found out the secret of the stream. Sweet water foamed around them, pushing them along. They had released it from its icy prison. Now it was free to flow, and flow it would, down through the long, steep tunnel that was its track through the mountain's core, and it was taking them with it, down, down, to the village of Rin. Val and Ellis had been woken before daybreak by a feeble tapping on the mill house door. They had opened it to find a nightmare, Alun and Marley, filthy and ragged, nearly fainting from exhaustion and thirst. They had taken them into the mill, bathed their wounds, and given them food and drink. Then they had heard something of the fearful journey the two had shared as they retraced their steps through the swamp and forest to the cliff top and down to the mountain's foot. They exchanged grave looks as they learned what had happened in the caves. Strong John was a brave man, Val said at last. You speak as though he were dead, Alun cried, pushing his cup away. If he is not, Val replied stolidly? What kind of word is that? He soon will be, and Rin with him. He is on the mountain, alone. He cannot succeed now, and he cannot survive. He is not alone, Molly objected. Rowan is with him. Val and Ellis stared at her as though she were mad. Of what use to John is a scared weakling like Rowan? Val demanded. He needs a strong, courageous companion to... He had 5 strong, courageous companions. Alun lifted his head and looked her straight in the eye. They all ran away. Marley buried her face in her hands. Ellis finally spoke. Dawn is breaking. We must go to Jilla, he muttered. She will be in the bookshelf field, seeing to the beasts. We must tell her what has happened. With heavy hearts, the 4 left the mill. The sky was golden pink by the time they reached the dried-up pool. They saw Jilla standing there with Anard, her shawl pulled tightly around her head. She was looking up at the mountain, shivering in the cool wind. Then she turned and saw them. The sadness on her face became terror. She screamed, Alun, Marley, what has happened? Where is Rowan? Where is Rowan? At that moment, the roaring from the mountain top had begun, and it had gone on and on and on. Star raised her head and called to Anard and Jilla. Anard did not hear. She had her arms around Dawn's new calf, comforting it as it trembled at the sound of the dragon. And Jilla, deep shadows under her red-rimmed eyes, was standing rigidly between Alun and Marley. She heard nothing but the thundering sound high above them on the mountain, saw nothing but the flashing fire that lit the sky above the cloud. Val and Ellis stood silently by. With them were Brondon and every other member of the village. All had come running when they heard the sound. Now they stood, looking up, their faces masks of dread and fear. None of them paid attention to Star's call. Star moved away from the empty drinking pool and began to walk upstream along the dry stream bed. She did not know why she was drawn this way. She only knew that she must go, and quickly. A fence blocked her way. She nudged it aside with her shoulder, trampled over it without a glance, and moved on. She heard Gillis shout behind her and other voices, but she did not look back. The silent call was stronger now. She broke into a lumbering run. "Star, what is it?" They were chasing her. She could hear Gillis' sobbing voice and the sounds of many feet. She ran faster. The stream bed gaped brown and empty beside her. Earth, grass, and flowers scattered beneath her hoofs. The mill was ahead, on the other side, the tall stone mill with its huge wooden wheel that had stood silent for so many days. And yet, Star's ears pricked. There was a sound, a creaking sound, and a rippling, rushing sound. Water. Her parched throat ached for water, but there was another sound too. A voice she knew. "Star, Star, Star!" Star answered the call. She plunged into the dry stream bed. She thundered to the place where the sound came from, the mill channel up ahead, where the great wheel creaked and strained. Sweet water. Her nostrils were full of the smell of it now, for the water was coming, in a wave that rose higher and higher every second, tumbling between the banks of the stream, pushing at the mill wheel's wooden paddles, pouring through it and past it, down to Rin. Star met and breasted the wave head-on. She tossed her head and heaved herself through the foam, ignoring the sticks and rocks that beat against her legs, ignoring the urge to stop and fill her parched mouth. She forced her way across the earth bank to the mill channel that lay beside the stream, and with a groan of love, relief, and pressure, she reached the mill wheel and thrust her muzzle into the reaching hand of the boy who clung there. She dipped her head to take the burden he guided onto her broad back and felt clutching hands on her mane. Slowly and carefully she waded into the foaming stream and threw it to the opposite bank, not looking back as the great wheel finally gave way to the pressure of water and began to turn, crushing the branches and sticks caught between its blades. She clambered from the water. She felt Rowan's hands gripping her wool as he stumbled beside her, heard Rowan's voice in her ear. He was talking to her, as he had always done, and he was talking to the man lying on her back, telling them both, "It is all right. We are safe. We are home." Rowan threaded his fingers more tightly through Star's soft, damp coat. "Home," he said again, tasting the word on his tongue. His mind whirled. Everything had happened so quickly. Their journey from Rin to the dragon's lair had taken long days and nights. Their return, that terrifying downward slide through the underground stream, had taken minutes. It seemed unbelievable that he was here, safe in the valley with the grass beneath his feet and the morning breeze in his face. He screwed his eyes shut, suddenly afraid that this was a dream and he was still on the mountain top with the fire, the ice, the terror and despair. But when he opened them again, the green fields of Rin were still there, and Star, and the stream bubbling beside him. It was true. They were home. They were safe. The water had come back to Rin, and they had come with it. "Rowan! Rowan!" a cry shrilled in the distance. Rowan looked up. A figure was running towards them along the stream bank. It was Gilla, calling to him, her arms spread wide. Anard ran a little behind her, and far behind them both surged a crowd. It seemed as if the whole village was there, racing towards him. As the people drew closer, Rowan could hear that they were cheering, shouting, laughing with joy. But his eyes were swimming, and he could not see their faces clearly. He could only see Gilla's, as she reached him at last, swept him into her arms, and hugged him as though she would never let him go. Rowan clung to her, listening to the words she crooned to him over and over again. Feeling her overwhelming relief and thankfulness for the return of the child she thought she had lost, and her love, which at last he understood. And in that moment the old cold ache in his heart melted away like snow before the fire, leaving no trace behind. Together they lifted John from Star's back and knelt beside him. "I think his leg is broken," said Rowan in a low voice. "He is in pain, but he is alive." John's eyes opened, and he looked up at the two worried faces bending over him. So unalike, yet so alike. He tried to say something, struggled to rise, then fell back with a groan. "John, lie still," begged Gilla. "Do not try to speak. There is no need." The injured man wet his cracked lips with his tongue. "There is a need," he said. Rowan could see that every word was an effort for him, but he was determined to continue. "There is something I must tell you, Gilla. I promised that I would bring your son home to you, but it is Rowan who has brought me home. He made me go on when I would gladly have fallen and died. He fought cold and fire for me, when he could have saved himself. He faced the dragon alone." Rowan crouched on the grass, one hand in Gilla's, the other resting on John's chest. He had not heard the crowd gathering behind him. He did not see the looks of wonder on their faces as they listened to John's words, but John saw. With a great effort he raised his voice. "It is thanks to Rowan that the stream flows again," he said. "He never gave up. He would not give up. The smallest and weakest among us proved the strongest and bravest in the end. Rin owes him a great debt." There was silence. A tiny bird chirped in a nearby tree, and then a tremendous sound rose up. Rowan spun around, startled. He saw cheering people all around him. There were Alun and Marley, their faces still streaked with mud, shouting and laughing and pounding each other on the back. There was Brondon, clapping her hands, and the Millers, Val and Ellis, staring at each other in amazement. There was Neil the potter, his mouth stretched into a vast grin, the people from the gardens, and Timon the teacher, and all the others. "Rowan, Rowan," they were chanting. "Rowan of the Bookshire, Rowan of Rin." John smiled. "Skinny rabbit," he whispered, and well satisfied, saw Rowan begin to laugh. Star rumbled to herself. Quietly she moved away and lumbered to the edge of the stream, filled now to the brim with clear, sweet, running water. She listened. Low, joyful bellows from the village reached her ears. The water had reached the Bookshire pool. The herd was safe. Rowan was safe. The stream ran again. All was as it should be. Star lowered her head at last to drink. Oh my god, we did it! Yeah. That was the longest chapter. 23 minutes! Christ's sake. We made it to the end. Rowan of Rin, tick. Rowan of Rin, tick. Coming for you, Dexter. That was actually interesting. I was invested. So glad I finished it. Can't believe you just beat the dragon like that though. You made that look so easy. Anyway. Bye.